But then, up on Missoula Avenue, Peters was the first house. Now it's Lois Jane Richards lives there, but that's her mom and dad. She was a Peters. Next door, for about 5 houses, was all Irish. But then across the street was called Decker Stadium. In order, you had to live in Centerville in them days to know where Decker Stadium was. Decker Stadium is now where the Montana Power Substation sits. Decker Stadium was a clubhouse. That clubhouse was Dick Eustace, Ray Eustace, Tanner Martin, Bill Evans, Georgie Crothers, the one that Hartman used to run with radiator shop. That was their clubhouse. Oh, DeAnt Rogers, Billy DeAnt Rogers, they were all in that clubhouse. Inside that clubhouse, Tom Rogers worked for the printing company then, and they had all the prints of the shows that were coming on. And they had the walls decorated with them. Today, those lithographs, or whatever they're called, be worth nothing but money. But that was a clubhouse, and nobody bothered it. And like I say, you were invited in, or they let you come in, but don't ever get in there. Sneak in, because your pants will be hanging on the pole up. The big guys always made sure that nobody picked on the little guys. It was fine to fight somebody your own size, your own age, but don't pick on anybody smaller, so they made sure that everybody... Right below my house was the Buffalo. The Buffalo Drive was the home of the Centerville independent football team. My Uncle John Larry coached them. He played quarterback for them. There were all kinds of people from Centerville and Walkerville and around the area played for Centerville. They practiced on the Mullen Field, which you'll see in that picture there. At goalposts on both ends, one facing Main Street, one facing Minor Street. It was a great place. The Anaconda Company lit it. The lights were there. They'd turn on the lights and they'd practice. And work all day in the mines, practice at night and go kill each other on Sunday out of Clark Park. My Uncle John, my dad always took me to football games, so my Uncle John said to me, he said, come on, carry my head, Gary. Okay. I got to sit on the bench. So I'm sitting on the bench there watching the game, and I got thirsty, and they got a big water bucket sitting there with a ladle in it, see, and I go over and I just about ready to ladle the water, and I heard the roar, John, and my dad's sitting in the stands. Come here. So I went over to the fence, and he said, here, give me a dime, go get an orange crush. He said, don't go near that water bucket. Okay. I find out later it was spiked. They had motion. They used the red streetcars on Sunday to haul Centerville people to the football game. Centerville's playing the Gulch. You didn't want to. It's fine if the Gulch won, but if the Gulch lost, you went up the Anaconda Road and turned by Scound's house and up and paralleled the Stewart fence. But I'll tell you, they were waiting on the corner. Thunder, mugs, everything. Cabbage, everything. If Centerville lost, they were all cheering. You know, like I said, it was a great place to be raised. Everybody knew everybody. I never remember our house being locked. Never did. Nobody locked the house. Everybody, no matter where you went, was the Mullen Field. Everybody was in the Mullen Field. They flooded it in the wintertime. We learned how to play shinny, which was our version of hockey that you played with broom handles and little Seagull milk cans, you know. Get killed, put carbon inside your knees, shins, so you would get beat to death. But it was, and it's still to me, one of the greatest places in the world to sun. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody had a good time up there. You know, I went to work on the Western Union when I was a kid. They had a character in the Mullen House. His name was Denny Sullivan. They called him the Mope. So my dad and I were standing on the corner one night. He was talking there. Here comes Denny down, and he says to my father, he says, Tim, yeah. He says, has the lad been down to the green gates of education yet? Down on Mercury Street. My dad turns to me and he said, about 10 or 12 times a week, ain't it, John? And I said, yeah. He didn't know I was a Western Union messenger. We delivered a lot of telegrams. My dad kind of put him at ease. Like I say, there was people in Centerville that they were great. The Mullen House was a great place. Papers were all dropped at the Mullen House. I was a paper boy when I was a kid. You go in the Mullen House and sit in the lobby there and fold the papers. Mrs. Harrington was a great lady. If it was cold like today or colder, and then, you know, she'd call you in, give you a bowl of mush. It was a great thing in them days, mush. That's all everybody ate, mush. But it's where the papers were picked up. I still eat mush myself. It's a great fortifier. But, you know, like I say, the corn mine was closed. We are a great generation. I have to tell you this before I shut up or you'll tell me to get out of here. But the thing is, we survived the Depression. We survived World War II. We survived Korea. We survived Vietnam. We own our own houses. We pay our taxes. You know, we are a great generation. Those that were born in the 20s and the early 30s are one tough, great generation. And all you had to do is look at yourself and say, yeah, we are. Because we were a great generation. We are a great generation. We saw a man on the moon. That means sit down. I got one more thing. 1934, pulled the wagon up to the Waco Fire Department. That's where you got the meat. In them days you had a refrigerator, an ice box. So what do you do with the meat? There was a brine barrel down the basement. That's where everything that was you couldn't use up right away was put. That's where I first learned what corned beef and cabbage was for. My father made his own corned beef. My mom would say, go down and get it. You reach in, if you had a little nick on the hand, oh man, it would sting. I said, my dad, boy, that brine sure stings. He said, that's good for you. That's how the bare knuckle fighters toughen up their hand, he said. The brine. But like I say, I enjoyed every minute of Centerville. I was gone for 4 years. In 1942 I left and I come back in 1946. And after my mom and dad both passed away, I moved back to Centerville in my house. My daughter owns the house next door. We bought Bitter Rogers' house, remodeled it for her. But it's still the same neighborhood. Pete Kennedy, my uncle Pete Kennedy lived where Johnny Gallett's wife lives now. He lived there. Then up the hill was my uncle John Larry, my dad, my mother's brother. So everybody was right in the same neighborhood. Sleigh ride down to Buffalo Hill, and man, we had some great times. Go over to Mountain Con, get the sawdust. You could sell the sawdust to Casey's and to Dan the Butcher and to the Tradigi's and to Waffles Rogers and for the bar. Sawdust on the floor. When they weren't looking, you throw a couple of blocks in the bag. Charlie Thurber, who was Frank Blockney's father-in-law, he said, don't take the shaft blocks. Take anything you want, but don't take the shaft blocks. I didn't know what a shaft block was straight up till I went to work on a rope gang. I found out in a hurry what shaft blocks were. Then it come time in the mornings to go over the con. They brought the wood out at 9 o'clock. And the small cars were all hoisted in the road out on the dump. All the kids from Corktown, all the kids from down below, all the kids from Centerville. They threw off the cars, the wood. If you grabbed a hold of a laggin, and it was a pretty good laggin, and they looked across it, if a bigger guy had it, you let go of it. If it was a smaller guy, you took it. But if it was in between, well, what's it worth? You either knuckle junction or give it up. Anybody remember Julie Casey? He was a little fella, and we put it in a car, a small mine car. Pulled it all the way back to the con fence and gave it a shove, but threw the hook off the handle. At the end of the track, they had a roll-up so they wouldn't go down the gulch. Well, he hit the end of it, and he almost made it to Corktown. First man in order from Centerville. Like I have a poem here. I don't know how many of you people have this poem, or I gave some to Driscoll to give out. The Cousin Jack Quartet. this is that poem, wrote by Walter Duffy's father. He wrote this poem. There's just a couple of lines I'd like to read. It says, their repertoire was versatile in old forgotten days. Their harmony was heavenly when singing hymns of praise. If angels could have heard them, they in wonder must have sat and listened in right with rapture to that Cousin Jack quartet. It's great. It tells quite a few guys from Centerville. Joe James, Toretta, Turgidji, Ken Venner's father, he sang in the Cousin Jack quartet. But I gave copies of, so you know, you could have them. He also wrote a poem that if anybody have ever, this other poem here, I have, it's called At the Foot of the Great Divide. It's wrote by the same guy. If you read the poem, you listen to it. He's sitting down at St. Patrick's Cemetery or the Mount Moriah Cemetery on South Montana Street. Because he says, he sees the lights of the city above and the Great Divide. So he's writing this poem sitting down in the cemetery. But at the last word on the last sentence of the poem is, why should we grieve the ones who leave, who have laid their burden down? They're not as far away as we think they are, just down at the edge of town. But there they wait by the open gate that leads to the other side, to greet old friends when the long trail ends at the foot of the Great Divide. Thank you for your